In a village where tradition ran as deep as the roots of the ancient Iroko tree, there lived a young woman named Adanna. Every morning, before the sun could chase away the mist that clung to the earth, she would rise from her mat, tie her wrapper tight, and wheel out her most precious possession, her late father's bicycle. The metal was rusted in places, the paint had long faded, but to Adanna, it was worth more than gold. It was her father's legacy, and it was her livelihood. Adanna was a palm wine seller. She would ride through the village paths to collect fresh palm wine from the tappers, load the heavy calabashes onto her bicycle, and then pedal from compound to compound, selling the sweet, frothy drink that the villagers loved. The work was hard, the sun was merciless, and the roads were rough, but Adanna never complained. Her mother was sick, bedridden most days, and as the only child, the responsibility of caring for her fell on Adanna's shoulders alone. The other young women in the village had different opinions about Adanna's work. They would gather at the stream, their voices sharp with mockery. "Look at the bicycle girl," Ngozi would say, tossing her braids over her shoulder. "What kind of woman rides a bicycle like a man? No wonder no one wants to marry her." Chioma would laugh in agreement. Her father left her nothing but shame and rust. Poor thing doesn't even know how to behave like a proper woman. But Adanna had learned long ago to let their words slide off her like water off palm leaves. They didn't understand what it meant to have no father to provide, no brother to share the burden. They didn't know the weight of being the only one standing between your mother and starvation. So she pedaled on, her head held high, the bicycle wheels singing their own song against the red earth. One day, on the dusty road that led to the farmlands, Adanna's bicycle tire went flat. She was struggling with it, her hands covered in dirt, when a voice spoke behind her. "Sister, let me help you with that." She looked up to see a young man, his clothes simple and worn, his hands calloused from farm work. There was something gentle in his eyes, something kind in his smile. Together they fixed the tire, and when they were done, Adanna reached for one of her calabashes. "Let me give you some palm wine for your trouble," she offered. The man, who introduced himself as Obi, shook his head. "Oh, I appreciate it, sister, but I have no money today." Adanna laughed, a sound as bright as morning bells. "Who asked you for money? Just pray that my market goes well today. That's payment enough." From that day forward, Adanna and Obi seemed to find each other on that road. Sometimes he would be heading to his farm, other times he would be returning with a cutlass over his shoulder. Each time they met, Adanna would offer him palm wine, and each time, Obi would say he had no money. And each time, Adanna would laugh and tell him the same thing, just pray for her success. She did this because she believed Obi was too poor to afford her palm wine and too proud to ask for charity. Nobody had ever shown Obi such kindness, such generosity without expectation. Their meetings grew longer. They would stand by the roadside, sharing palm wine and stories. Obi learned about Adanna's dreams of one day opening a proper palm wine shop, about her mother's illness and the cost of medicine, about the loneliness of carrying everything alone. Adanna learned about Obi's life as a farmer, his struggles, his hopes. She noticed how hard he worked, how respectfully he spoke, how his eyes lit up when he laughed. And slowly, quietly, her heart began to hope for something she had never allowed herself to dream about. One evening, As golden light filtered through the palm trees and painted the world in shades of amber, Obi looked at Adanna with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Adanna," he said softly, "if a poor man like me asked for your hand in marriage, what would you say?" Adanna's heart raced. She smiled, feeling both shy and bold at once. "You're a hardworking man, Obi. Any woman would be honored. But I cannot marry yet, not until my mother is well enough to care for herself. She sacrificed everything for me when my father died. I cannot abandon her now." Obi stepped closer. "And if this poor man promised to care for both you and your mother?" Adanna felt tears prick her eyes. "Then I would ask you, are you sure you want a wife who rides a bicycle and smells of palm wine? A wife the whole village mocks." Obi reached out and took her hand. "I would want a wife with a heart of gold. Everything else is just noise." Adanna's smile broke wide across her face. "Then I would say yes, Obi. I would be proud to be your wife." They laughed together then, sharing palm wine as the sun set, making plans for a simple future, a small farm, a palm wine shop, a home where Adanna's mother would be cared for. Obi told her he needed to travel to the next village for work but would return soon to properly meet her mother and begin the marriage preparations. They parted that evening with joy in their hearts and hope in their eyes. But that night was the last time Adanna saw Obi. Days passed with no word. She rode to his farm, it was abandoned. She asked other farmers if they had seen him, no one had. A week went by, and with each day, Adanna's hope crumbled a little more. Had she said something wrong? Had he realized she was too poor, too burdened? Or had something terrible happened to him? Her mother tried to comfort her, but Adanna's heart ached with a pain she had never known. She threw herself into her work, pedaling harder, working longer, trying to forget the farmer who had made her believe in love. Then, exactly 1 week after Obi's disappearance, news exploded through the village like lightning. The prince had returned from abroad, and today, at the palace, he would choose his bride. Every eligible young woman was invited to attend. The village erupted in chaos. Girls ran to the market for their finest wrappers and jewelry. Mothers rushed to prepare their daughters. Ngozi and Chioma spent hours adorning themselves, each dreaming of a crown on her head. But when Adanna's mother suggested she prepare herself and attend, Adanna shook her head. "Mama, I'm going to the palace, but not to be chosen. Think about it, all those people gathered in one place. I'll sell more palm wine today than I have all month. We need money for your medicine." She loaded her bicycle with extra calabashes and pedaled toward the palace, her mind on business, not princess. The palace courtyard was indeed packed with people. Beautifully dressed young women stood in clusters, preening and gossiping. Families gathered with excitement. And Adanna set up her palm wine stand right at the gates, calling out her prices. The customers came in droves. People were thirsty, the day was hot, and Adanna's palm wine was the best in the village. She poured and sold, barely paying attention to the ceremony beginning inside. Before she knew it, her last calabash was empty. Adanna counted her money with satisfaction, more than enough for medicine and food for weeks. The ceremony had barely begun. She looked at her empty bicycle, then at the palace entrance. "Well," she said to herself, "since I'm already here, I might as well watch for a few minutes before going home. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and slipped into the back of the crowd. The Is sat on his throne in full royal regalia, majestic and imposing. And beside him sat another figure in royal robes, a coral crown on his head. Adanna stood on her toes to see better, and when she did, the world seemed to stop spinning. It was Obi. Her Obi. The poor farmer was the prince. Her mind reeled. All this time, all those meetings, all those conversations, he was royalty. The shock hit her like a physical blow. She felt dizzy, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone around her could hear it. The E stood to address the crowd, but Prince Obi wasn't listening. His eyes were searching, scanning the sea of faces. And then they found her, standing at the very back, still in her simple wrapper, smelling of palm wine, her head tied askew from her walk. When their eyes met, Obi's face transformed. He smiled, a smile so bright it rivaled the sun. Before anyone could understand what was happening, the prince stood and walked down from the platform. The crowd parted in confusion. Ngozi and Chioma straightened their wrappers, thinking he was coming toward them. But Obi walked past them without a glance. He walked past every elaborately dressed young woman, past every family hoping for royal favor, straight to the back of the crowd where the palm wine seller stood frozen in shock. He took her hand, her rough, calloused, walking hand, in his, and gently but firmly, led her forward. The crowd erupted in whispers. Gasps echoed through the courtyard. Adanna's legs felt like water, but Obi held her steady as he brought her to stand before his father. "Baba," Obi announced, his voice clear and strong, "this is Adanna, daughter of late Motsi Okafor. She is the woman I choose as my bride." The E studied Adanna with shrewd, calculating eyes. "Tell me, my son, why this woman?" Obi turned to address both his father and the crowd. "She showed kindness to a stranger she believed had nothing. When I told her I had no money, she gave me palm wine anyway and asked only for my prayers for her success. She works harder than anyone I've ever known, riding that bicycle through mockery and judgment to care for her sick mother. She chose duty to her mother over her own happiness. She shared what little she had. She never asked for anything in return." Then he turned to Adanna, speaking directly to her, his voice soft with emotion. "You carry yourself with dignity even when others try to shame you. Adanna, you have a heart of pure gold, and you have had my heart since the first day you offered me palm wine on that dusty road." Adanna found her voice, tears streaming down her face. "You let me think you were poor. You disappeared without a word. I thought you had changed your mind about me." Obi squeezed her hand gently. "I needed to return to the palace to prepare. I wanted to do this properly, to honor you before my father and the kingdom. Forgive me for the pain my silence caused. But tell me now, before everyone, will you still have me? Will you be my wife?" The entire palace grounds fell silent. Every eye was on the palm wine seller. Adanna looked at Obi, at the man who had shared her palm wine and her dreams, who had listened to her fears and honored her struggles. Then she looked at the crowd, at Ngozi and Chioma with their mouths hanging open, at all the people who had mocked her bicycle and her walk. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. "Yes," she said clearly. "Yes, I will be your wife. But only if you promise that my mother will be cared for, and that somewhere in your palace, there's a place for one rusty bicycle." Obi laughed, a sound of pure joy, and the entire crowd erupted in cheers and ululation. The East stood and smiled. "My son has chosen well. A woman who knows struggle will never take abundance for granted. A woman who honors her mother will honor her husband and her children. Welcome to our family, Adanna." 6 months later, Adanna's mother was healthy and living in comfort in the palace. Adanna's palm wine business had grown into a thriving enterprise, employing many village women who had once mocked her. And in the great hall of the palace, mounted on the wall with a golden plaque beneath it, hung her father's bicycle. The plaque read, "In honor of the wheels that carried a queen to her destiny." And every few weeks, Prince Obi and Princess Adanna would slip away from the palace, walk down that old dusty road to the palm trees, sit on the ground like they used to, and share palm wine and laughter, just two people who found love in the most unexpected place, far from crowns and courts and the noise of the world. Sometimes, the people who seem to have nothing are the ones with the richest hearts. Sometimes, kindness shown to a stranger becomes the seed of a beautiful destiny. And sometimes, the bicycle you ride through mockery and struggle is the very thing that carries you to your crown. If this story touched your heart, if Adanna's journey inspired you, or if you believe in the power of kindness and character over wealth and status, then subscribe to this channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we have more beautiful African stories of love, courage, and destiny waiting for you. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today, and remember, your act of kindness to someone who cannot repay you might just change both of your lives forever. Until next time, keep your heart kind and your spirit strong.